We may not be able to get in on the sporting action like we used to, but we can get in on some exclusive offers from Renault. To celebrate their third year as official car partner of the GAA, Renault is offering a range of special offers exclusive to all GAA club members. So now you can take home the win right to your door. Check out Renault.ie/GAA to find out more.
With Renault, official car partner of the GAA, taking the passion of a nation to a whole new gear.
A grain of rice, a grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lad.
There's a small bit of a needle there.
Come on, Mayo, you've got to get Andy Moran into the game.
Listen back to Aidan, and now they're really roaring. And I can tell you, there won't be a cow milk in County Clare for at least a week.
Hello everyone, you're very welcome to the Renault Irish Examiner Gaelic Football Show. My name is Paul Rouse and I'm joined by the former Armagh footballer Oisin McConville and by the former Cork footballer Larry Tompkins. We will be talking about Mayo and Galway, about the decline of the Dubs, about the glory of Ulster football, but we are going to start with Munster football. Larry, will Cork beat Kerry on Sunday?
I didn't think they'd beat him last year, but look, it was one of those days. I think Cork Kerry, no matter what type of form goes into the game, it's kind of thrown out the window. So naturally Kerry are very, very hot favourites. They're playing extremely well. Cork probably on the other hand kind of had an up and down league, survived getting relegated. So look, they're going to Killarney, they have a mountain to climb, but who knows, it's one of those days that, you know, it could throw up anything.
We'll come back to Cork in a minute. Are you impressed with Kerry?
Well, 2 years ago, I thought they'd win the All-Ireland. It's funny because I had a lot of these guys. I trained the UCC freshers team about going on, 4 or 5 years ago now, and I had a lot of these Kerry boys, 8 or 9 of them. And I just thought like that, I was very taken with their attitude, their commitment, just their complete focus on kind of getting the best out of themselves and to try and advance onto the senior team at that stage. A lot of these guys like Jason Foley, Brian Begley, Tom Sullivan, Sean O'Shea, Killian Spillane, these guys like entered the senior team when they were only 18, 19 years of age. So they kind of needed probably a few years to kind of man up to the kind of physical strains that probably was needed. I thought like that they would probably overrun Dublin 2 years ago. They nearly got there. But probably a bit of inexperience maybe cost them near the end, the first day in particular. Second day they were close to them as well. But I think last year they kind of got caught, and I think this year they're on a different mission. They look strong, they look forceful, they look like they're settled, they look like they have a good bench. They look like they're moving the ball with an awful lot of pace, like that. They're looking down the line, like to naturally to be able to beat the like a Dublin. So a lot of things going right at the moment, and I unfortunately don't see that changing on Sunday. I think they'll advance and they'll set up a mouth-watering clash with Dublin in the semi-final.
Do you see that they would actually play the winners of Tyrone Donegal in a semi-final, and it would be through to the final? But do you see Kerry then as All-Ireland champions in waiting? Are they the team who you think will win the All-Ireland?
Yeah, without a doubt. I just think like this. I just think they've improved so much. I just think physically, which they needed to get to. You know, you take the likes of Sean O'Shea like that. 2 years ago, like he's a fantastic footballer. Like he has all the attributes. Brilliant free taker, brilliant on the ball. Now he's able to shake off tackles. He's able to beat his man. He's able to win the ball physically. You know, Tom Sullivan, another guy that's really after taking on, you know, that kind of a role of up and down the field. Jason Foley is a guy like that. Probably is probably the one guy that's really after maturing. You know, tight, tenacious, and let's not forget he was I think an All-Ireland sprinter, like going back like to his younger days. Like, so he has plenty of pace back there and a big guy. I just see them overall. They look like the complete package at the moment, and I think their introduction of the bench like is critical too nowadays. And you have the likes of Tommy Welch, Killian Spillane, These guys coming off the bench, they add enormous strength to the Kerry setup, and I just think they're the team to beat. I just think that Dublin have been an exceptional team over the last number of years, but unfortunately for the like of Mayo, I think they could have won one or two of those All-Irelands. Kerry could have maybe got 2 years ago, so I think it's Kerry's turn this time.
You played senior inter-county football at 16. You then you spoke yourself previously about having been, needing to build yourself up, and I think uniquely for the late 70s and early 80s, or at least it was hugely exceptional. You went into a gym.
Yeah,
was that a sense of your background?
Yeah, I just think, Paul, it's just I think when you're an inter-county player, you have an exception. You have a certain amount of ability. Like, I think you have to develop yourself, like, physically, particularly physically and mentally. I think physically, if you become in good shape and physically very strong and feel like that, you get that belief from doing that. And when you enter the big stages, you're not intimidated by anybody. You believe more in yourself, and I think like that you're more of a competitor on the field, and you're more of a complete player. And I do think like that. I say to Cork down here, I think that players have been kind of lost because players have been left not bringing them in early enough and developing them. 18, 19 years of age, they should have been brought in. Like, they've had very good minor under 20 teams, and we've seen a lot of those players over the last 8-10 years being lost, and it's due to the fact like that they're just not developed the way other players are developed from the bigger counties that's having success. And I do think Cork are in that mold now. They are bringing in players a lot younger and trying to develop them and get them to that stage. And I think Kerry are at that stage now. I think their squad is really developed. And for a player's development, you need all the attributes to be able to go forward. You cannot compete. Even back in my day, Ocean's day, and today. Even today's training has gone to a different level again. And you're not going to be able to compete. We see the teams that's highly developed, and we see other teams then just blown out of the water because they're just not able to compete. So it does take a lot of commitment individually from yourself to get yourself right. We can all go to collective training, and we do what's on the rota call for that hour and a half or 2 hours. But don't be foolish. I think a player's development is within himself. And if he's not committed to do that, well, then he's not going to get to the level that's required.
Oisin, do you see Kerry as All-Ireland champions in waiting? Is this just one more step on the road to Sam?
Not really, no. I think there's still a lot. They still have a lot to prove. I think what may not help them is that I think they could be on a collision course with Tyrone. I'm not completely writing off Monaghan. It's too close of a game to call. I've said for some time that I think the next team that wins the All-Ireland from Ulster could be 4, possibly 5 years away. But the reason why I think that's a tricky game, if that's the game that happens, that's a tricky game, is because of what happened in Killarney and the shipping of the 6 goals. And I think that definitely seems to have focused the mind as far as Tyrone's concerned. But I just, like, when I watch Kerry, and the interesting thing what Larry was talking about this morning is that the majority of players that he mentioned first off are defenders. So Foley, O'Bugliok, if I'm pronouncing that right, Crowley, White, like, that's really where the improvement has to come, and a dramatic improvement. And the other place, as things open up, and we get into Croke Park, are they prepared to play David Moran in the middle of the field? Or are they going to go with the 2 mobile guys, the Spillane and O'Connor? And I think that offers them a better opportunity, with David Moran obviously playing a part, but maybe a part when the sting goes out of the game a little bit, and, to come in and finish things off, to when things get tight, to have that outlet of, kicking the ball to him and him winning that initial possession. But definitely, I don't think Kerry are massively further on, believe it or not, than they were. I think what has made a massive difference is they've got the bit between their teeth because of what happened last year. I think Cork are going to pay a hefty price for that at the weekend. But I still think there's loads of question marks as far as Kerry's concerned, and I think part of that comes for, like, if I was managing against Kerry tomorrow, like, I mean, there's an acceptance. You got to hold your hands up and say, look, at David Clifford's probably going to get one. He's probably going to get 1-4, and you know what? If he does, somebody's done an absolutely brilliant job on him. But I think what we've seen before, as far as Clifford's concerned, is just trying to starve him of that possession, trying to slow things down in the middle area of the field. And nothing has said to me that Dublin or a Mayo are still not capable of, or even a Tyrone are still not capable of doing that against them. So I still think there's Kerry's still a bit of work to do, but I think definitely the kick up the hole they got last year against Cork is definitely standing them in good stead, and they're getting a lot of mileage out of it at this stage. And I think once they get to the weekend, they'll be putting that ghost to bed. But there's another challenge and possibly two more challenges ahead. So they still have a bit of a road to travel, I think.
Are you dismissing Cork's chances again this year?
See, Paul, yes, but I have to say that having had a little bit of feedback on my analysis of Cork in the last number of months, I've gone all out.
What do you mean by that? What feedback have you got?
That perhaps that I've been maybe harsh at times, and I think maybe some of that is fair enough. I think maybe that I said about, I think the last day I talked about Cork, I mentioned about the structure, and having reviewed it, the structure is definitely better. It's not what it should be. I mean, if you have two midfielders and maybe two half backs ahead of the ball in an attack, and the ball's turned over, that's not good enough structure for me. I don't think there's any need for all of those four players in very definitive areas of the field to be ahead of the ball. No, absolutely no reason. And I think that leaves themselves very open. They're very open on the break. We've seen it against Westmeath in the relegation. The relegation playoff. Sorry, and then we've seen it against Tipperary against
Limerick.
Limerick, sorry, the last day. And I think when on review of it, the one other thing that I would say about Cork is that 15 plays 15, 14, generally speaking, plays 14. Those parts don't seem to be as movable as some of the other teams, especially the top teams. They don't give you enough. They probably don't ask you enough questions defensively. But definitely things have improved. I will hold my hands up and say things have definitely improved, and I think they're definitely on the right path, but it's a work in progress, and there's still a lot more work to do. And if they get 11, 12 players ahead of the ball and Kerry turn them over at the weekend, it could be complete carnage. It really could.
Larry, you're one of that most rare of things, a Cork footballer who's won a match in Killarney in Championship football. Why do Cork find it so difficult to win in Killarney?
I don't look. I suppose I was very lucky, like that. I came from, I suppose, myself and Shea Fahy. We weren't kind of born in Cork. We didn't have kind of the baggage that a lot of the Cork players had, like of going to Killarney and getting hammered. It was just a kind of a weekend away for the supporters because they knew they had no chance of winning, or they didn't give themselves any chance or no belief. But I think in my 9 or 10 times playing in Killarney, or 8 times, I think, I thanks be to God, I only had one defeat there. So I just think it's down to your desire. I think within Cork they have a lot of good players. What are they missing? They're missing leadership. They're missing they're missing guys in the dressing room. Managers can do so much, but you need a package of 5 or 6 players that's able to grab guys by the scruff of the neck before training, at matches, get them into that mold of this is life, like this is, this means everything, like. And at times, like, a lot of Cork fellas maybe would have football maybe 3rd or 4th choice, and that's not the way it can work if you want to win All Ireland. So I just think they need that mean streak again, Kerry, like, and that was probably lacking. Like, certainly, I think when we arrived, even though the Cork had an abundance of talent, like, through a lot of success at the under-21 ranks that time, they had won 6 All-Irelands, like, in under-21 titles, like, in that era, like, and you had a massive load of players coming through, but still, like, they felt inferior to Kerry. They felt like that, if there were, that time you arrived at Killarney Stadium, it's different nowadays, like, that you're protected, unreal. But that time you got out of the bus and you walked through the crowd. But I think the Cork team, before, if they seen the Kerry team, they'd let them go first because they nearly genuflected them. So you cannot go along like that, like, to be successful. You have to have, a belief in yourself, and you have to have a belief in your team, and you have to have a desire. And as I said, Cork have a lot of good players, but I just feel maybe that they just lack that development and that desire, maybe at times, like, that you want to, if you want to get something, you mean business, like. So I think it can be intimidating, like, for a lot of Cork fellas going to Killarney, but hopefully they have a good young squad coming along, and they're developing them fairly well now. And I think down the line, maybe it's not going to happen maybe this year, but I do think in a few years' time, hopefully Cork will be a strong force if they maintain that their level that they're at the moment, or going towards. But just listen to Oisín there in relation to a few points there about the Cork lads, like, I just feel like that, Cork beat Kerry last year. They went in then again Tipperary, and Tipperary were, you take 3 or 4 or 5 of their players, like, and if you kind of cut them out of it, like, it was Cork had to win, but they just went in like, I don't know, like a lame duck, and just didn't mind these dangerous fellas that Tipperary had. But Cork moved the ball too slow, like. You cannot move the ball too slow in the modern game, like, and that's why I like Kerry this year. Like, I just think that if you look at the Kerry team, they're not delaying the ball in any way, and I just think, like, that. I was glad to hear, Paul, that they're not playing Dublin maybe in the semi-final, or maybe it might be a good thing. I think they might catch them in the semi-final, but I just think, like, that they're looking to that level, like, that they just feel like that they were going into the challenge, losing possession at vital stages in the All-Ireland 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just think, like, that they're different now. If you look at any of their players, their ball is moved quick and fast, and I just think that they're going to be very, very hard to beat. Like, you have the likes of Tyrone, maybe they might come out of Ulster, and I had a good look at them last week, and the 2 lads they're managing the first time. Of course, there's going to be, if they do meet Kerry in a semi-final, there'll be talks about the league match, but let's not forget, like, that Kerry have a lot of kind of baggage with Tyrone over the years, and they will want to get them at that stage too. And if they do get there, I just couldn't see Tyrone beating Kerry. Not where both teams are at the moment. I just couldn't see it. But I'm not been. I know Oisín has a soft spot for Tyrone up there, and
it's funny you should say that, actually, Larry. I watched I actually recorded the BBC coverage of the Tyrone Donegal match, and there was an amazing incident at half-time where Oisín is a changed man over the last 12 months here. Oisín referred to Tyrone as we at one stage in the half-time coverage. It was actually kind of an enormous...
Not a chance.
You absolutely did.
Not a chance, Paul.
You were talking about how a high ball went in.
Come on, Paul, you're better than that.
Between Matty Donnelly and Darren McCurry. It's on the record, and you says we can't have it, and then you corrected yourself. I don't know, was because you thought it was a mistake or whether you revealed yourself. Being in the studio with Peter Canavan and Mickey Hart has made you a different person.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Paul. It was very warm at the weekend. That's the only thing I can put that down to.
He was dehydrated, Paul. He was dehydrated.
I thought this is amazing. It's hands across the barricades here. Spandau Ballet playing in the background. We should actually talk about those Ulster Championship matches because, as we say, the winners of the Munster final on Sunday will ultimately play the winners of the Ulster Championship in the All-Ireland semi-final. And these were two very different matches, which we will talk about in a while. But these two matches were totally overshadowed by a devastating tragedy, the loss of the Monaghan under-20 captain Brendan O'Duffy. And we offer sincere sympathies to his family, to his friends, to his clubmates, the people of Monaghan. Oisín, you knew Brendan O'Duffy.
Yeah, the experience of coaching him on a couple of occasions. Banty had the under-17s at DKT and had taken a couple of sessions, and he was somebody that stood out for me because he didn't stand out initially. You know, if you're standing around and you're looking at the modern day footballer and you're looking at big physical specimens, you know, you're thinking, this guy, if he can play, if this guy can play football or that guy can play football. Benny O'G didn't really stand out in that way, but as soon as he got into a match situation, whatever it was, he was just like, and his communication levels for a 16 or 17-year-old was unbelievable. And I think it's had such a profound effect on the youth in the area. I know a couple of the guys, I'm training obviously in a skiing up Monaghan, and a couple of guys run that under 20 team with him and would have played the whole way up with him, and just the devastation. A lot of those guys walked into Newry on Saturday before the game and look, obviously very, very downtrodden, and as I say, it had a serious, profound effect on us. I said, before the game, there wasn't a massive appetite for football in Newry on Saturday. This guy's death, it has been compared to the death of Conor McManus in that it's touched so many people, and I think that's probably anybody who remembers the scenes around what happened with Conor McManus will realise that very similar in character. Very, very similar in character. Leaders, way before their time, get the absolute maximum out of themselves, and just a really good, solid guy. And I think the circumstances in which it happened, the timing of it, and everything else. As I said, there was very little appetite for a game of football in Newry on Saturday, and that was because it had hit people so hard,
On one level, it seems more than a little crass to talk about a football match in the context of such a loss, but
I think Paul, though, that the football match in the end was important.
Yeah, I agree. I was just going to say that. I think both the story of his life and the way the game was played was a reminder of just how much football means to all of us, I suppose, but what it means to people and to communities. And it's why people continue to play and watch the game, because it's a meaning that goes beyond just the mere game itself.
It felt like this, I don't want to get too deep into this, but it felt like the start of the healing process. And it felt it was an important part of that healing process. And again, not to repeat myself, but as I said, football seemed insignificant, yet very significant. If that makes sense. And as I say, it seemed like the first part of the healing process. And I think for those 80 minutes or whatever it was, people just got lost in an epic sporting event. And look, it's just almost like it was meant. That's the way that game was meant to develop, and that's the way that game was meant to happen, and that's the way that a fitting tribute to the young lad, you know.
And again, sincere condolences to his family and friends. And ultimately, in this match, when it was played, saw Monaghan concede 2 goals and 21 points in an Ulster Championship match and win.
Yeah, the 4 goals, was a bit of an operation as far as Armagh were concerned. Armagh didn't start with Aidan ORourke, and I think that hurt us. And like we just didn't work hard enough in around that middle sector to slow the ball into the full forward line. And by the time we had it sorted out, obviously now you can say it was too late, but the recovery that Armagh made was unbelievable. But like I there's two girls who do the stats for Monaghan, and they were waiting to get the DVD off BBC after it, and I seen them going to the trucks as most of these guys normally will, and I just said to them, you just need to fire that in the bin, never analyze that game, because that stuff will never happen again. That was just one of those things. And like I felt for Banty and I felt for Geezer, because we've all been in that situation where you're going like, I can change what I want here, but there's an inevitability about the fact that we have both completely lost control of what's going on here, and it's just taken on a life of its own. And that's the sport that I remember growing up. Not just Gaelic football, but a lot of the sport and stuff I remember, and probably those sort of events are maybe fewer and more far between than they've ever been. But it was just a pleasure to be there on Saturday evening, because even though I had the 2 boys with me, and there was 15 minutes of tears and stuff like that, because they've never seen Armagh in an Ulster final, and it would have been great to just even be there. It would have been another stepping stone for this team. But the fight and the heart that Monaghan showed was scary.
Conor McManus at the end of the game won 3 frees, converted 3 frees, basically won the match for Monaghan.
Yeah, it was just just going back to a few things there on Brendan. Just everyone down here in Cork, I think gutted all over the country, all over the world. If you're a GA head, just something you just don't want to hear, but please God, the GA is massive friends all over the place, and they'll rally around, please God, and they'll give the family great support, and his club, Monaghan Harps, lights. I'm sure like they are gutted with the circumstances, but no disrespect to Armagh, but it was very emotional. But it was a fitting tribute that Monaghan were successful at the end in an enthralling game, like of the way the game went from the first half to the second half, and fitting that such an outstanding player like Kieran McManus, stood tall and was able to kind of guide those balls over the bar, like when the pressure was at its greatest and the emotions were at its highest. So I don't think anybody in the stands, Armagh people, begrudged really Monaghan the victory on such a very, very sad day and sad week for everybody in the GA world.
The game itself, Aidan ORourke, your former teammate with Armagh Oisín, he wrote a really interesting column a few weeks ago on the RT website, in which he said he was basically talking about how the game had changed. And Larry, I don't know if you saw this article, but can I just read you a few sentences from it? Yeah. He said, "We now have a playing environment where shadowing passes for tackling and skills that don't contribute to the creation of scores are diminishing steadily. And so the game is one where someone wanted it to be 5 years ago. That is high scoring and approaching non-contact in nature. It may now be a product that sells to the modern middle class as they decide which of the array of sporting options best suits their kids for the weekend, but it has lost much of the physicality and sense of contest that set Gaelic games apart."
Yeah, look, it's something that I've kind of mentioned a lot over the last number of years. I think apart from a few games, I know maybe the scores are high, but I do think he has a good point there in relation to the game. I think you can have a low-scoring game, but you can have ferocious battles. You can have very competitive action, like with man markers. But a lot of the games can be very laboured. Ball going from side to side, very slow, back to the goalie. I just felt like when the rule changes were there, I think it was evident like that a few rule changes needed to be changed. Just say you had the goalkeeper to kick the ball out past the 45-yard line. Surely straight away you would have a different type of game. Surely the goalkeeper, even if soccer, they decided it was such bore that not to be passing back to the goalie. Now the goalie is becoming an outfield player. Apart from kicking frees off the ground, he's now playing as a 16-man out the field. Now we see the trend now starting. So, look, I think the game with a few little changes could have helped. I don't agree with this kind of black card. I just think the game is can be a lot of non-contact. I think you can have an awful lot of players like that can fool an awful lot of referees in relation to, you know, the bits of diving or the bits of holding that can be done. Football, as Oisin knows it, like, it's a manly game, it's a physical game, and I think a lot of the skills and the physicality are gone out of the game. And when you have a lot of players to go on the field to play a game of football, sure, look, they don't need to wear their football boots. All they're doing is a lot of money hand pass the ball. So is that what we want? And it's something that I really said it back 7-8 years ago. You could see like the way the trend was changing. And I think with a few little rule changes would have made a huge difference. And like, I know I kicked frees from the ground myself, but I, as a young fella back in the early 70s, late 60s, used to go to Crow Park alone to see Tony McTeague of Offaly kick frees because he was such a genius. People go to rugby matches to see Johnny Wilkinson of England and Ronan O'Gara of Munster in Ireland kicking balls off the ground. Now we bring up the goalkeeper as the only guy that can kick the ball off the ground. Like, that's an exceptional, in my book, an exceptional skill that has been thrown away, and there's no outfield player now that practicing kicking frees. It is brilliant to see the likes of Sean O'Shea, with the exception, and Dean Rock kicking frees from the ground. I just think it's an art, and I think that the GA has lost an awful lot of the skills and the physicality that people enjoyed with the game. And I don't like a lot of the games. I don't like the way they're played. But of course, I watch them because I'm just fanatical to watch them. But is it the right thing? I'd have my doubts.
Oisin, was it a very different game between Tyrone and Donegal than it was to Monaghan and Armagh?
Coincidentally, I used to go to Crow Park to watch Larry Tompkins hit frees off the ground. But the two games were different in that I would have described, and actually did describe my column on Monday as Sunday was more set-piece football. It was more the football that managers are very, very, very comfortable with, because they can have, when football's played like that, you can have a dramatic effect with one or two switches, whether it be personnel or whether that be tweaking how like the one tweak that Tyrone made at the weekend was that Frank Burns played as out and out sweeper for the whole game, but actually pushed up. Obviously pushed up whenever Murphy went off, and unbelievable that he was playing at a higher line, how much of a difference that made. Put a squeeze on Patton, and that just reverberated the whole way up the field, and some of the Donegal defenders just looked really uncomfortable on the ball, find an outlet pass and all that. So it was more set piece football. It was still, as Larry says, like to begin with, fairly low scoring, fairly tight, and still hugely entertaining, because I think we've gone full circle now. we're crying out for these games. We're crying out for the game where, scores are a little bit more at a premium, harder to come by. The defending is more tenacious. Completely dependent on what referee you get. Completely dependent. And see, when we used to do, like, this has been done for 20 years, maybe 30 years, 40 years maybe, but I'm just saying in my time, we analysed referees. We began to analyse referees and what went and what didn't go. And you better believe it now that every inter-county game that is assigned to a certain referee, the teams are playing in not a completely different way, but in a different way than they normally would. And a bit of physicality that's allowed by some referees and not allowed by others makes a dramatic difference to what we're watching, what we're viewing on the telly. And I do believe there are a few referees out there who really want to let it go but can't let themselves. And I think David Goldrick falls into that category. And I think that's what we've seen as well at the weekend, was that, he wants to let it go, but he can't allow himself. And I don't know whether that's because the assessors are so rigid, or he's afraid not to get another game, or whatever it is. But certainly on Saturday, there was loads of occasions where there was an opportunity to let the game go, and it wasn't let go. So there are a few referees who will, and then there's a few referees who will just spoil it, and that's a behest of the rules. So if I was to go to a refereeing committee and say, listen, X, Y, or Z, you can't have 60 or 70 frees in a game and make it a spectacle for supporting this. That's not what they're there for. They're there to implement the rules. But my God, there is a degree of common sense that we're definitely losing out on. And as Larry says, that the black card, and it's just made life very difficult for referees.
How does Tyrone under Fergal Logan and Brian Dooher differ from Tyrone under Mickey Hart?
Simple. In his absence, when we talked about players, defensive units, and players who shouldn't have any defensive duties, Darren McCurry doesn't have any. He's kicked 17 points in the last 2 games. That's essentially been the difference between Tyrone. I think they're a bit more adaptable than they were. So they hadn't played an out-and-out sweeper up till Sunday, and they decided to play one on Sunday. So they're adapting. I think Matty Donnelly at full forward, again, give them something a little bit different at the weekend. He'd been, like, I picked him up at halftime on Sunday because I thought his performances just hadn't been up to scratch, but he was very good in the second half against Donegal. Showed for the ball, brought all the players into the game, and just actually took on the shot. I think there's more of a tendency for them to back themselves under this management. Again, I'm sure that's not all down to Mickey Hart. I'm sure that's just down to maybe the fact that the players maybe have more ownership of what's going on now. It's sort of the Dublin type model. But there are a couple of things. Definitely more adaptable, and they have a lad up front who's on fire.
I got a text from a fairly emotional Tyrone man late enough on Sunday night. It just read, Monaghan, Kerry, Mayo, Sam. And the Sam was in capital letters. And he was obviously talking about the road that stretches out ahead of Tyrone for the rest of the summer. Is he right? Is Sam on the way back to Tyrone? Can you see that happening?
Yeah, I find it very difficult to see it at the minute. They definitely have a road to travel in more ways than one. But I maybe different to others, witnessed in cold blood what happened in Killarney, and a lot of those images I'll never be able to eradicate. And certainly, definitely not for this championship. But they're an improving side. And the one thing at the weekend, apart from the maybe 2 or 3 occasions, they definitely looked a bit more solid at the back, and I think Burns give them that. But like, if they play a full out-and-out sweeper against Kerry will eat them alive, because they'll kick points from 30, 40 yards, and they mightn't get in for goals, but they might kick 25 points against them.
Yes. Mayo, Galway, Larry. What do you think of the footballers of Mayo and Galway as things stand?
Yeah, look, you're hard to go to Mayo over the last number of years. They possess a lot of great things. I like watching them. They're just, I don't know, the big days against Dublin and All Ireland finals, as we know, they just seem to kind of mess up when the winning of the game was there. Like, I just have a feeling Galway will beat them. And why would I say that? I just think that Croke Park, even though Mayo are well used to it and have been there a lot compared to Galway, I just think the players that Galway have, the Croke Park will suit them. And I just think they possess a few quality forwards, Galway, and that could be the telling difference, really. That'll make the difference. Promise to be a great game. I just like the way Mayo play, and I think Galway have got into a nice routine of football as well, and hopefully it's a good free-flowing game. I just have a sneaky feeling Galway could take them, and I think when the Galway get to Croke Park, they always seem to wipe the eye of Mayo. Like, and even though Mayo have been doing all the great work over the years, and then Galway come out and they win in All Ireland or something like that. So, yeah, I even though my heart goes out to Mayo, and I love a lot of those Mayo players, and they wear their heart on the sleeve, and they've given us so much entertainment and so competitive again Dublin when other teams were blown away by them. But as I said, they just failed to kind of, when the pressure is as great, as to just fail to maybe do the right things when it's asked.
Did they fail to do the right things, or were they not quite good enough?
Well, I think on 2 All Irelands they had to win at those games. The sending off of Donal Vaughan, like at a critical stage, like 30-meter free, Dublin player being sent off. He wasn't even involved in the incident. Then a messy kind of a charge, like which isn't his nature, like, and gets sent off, and gives Mayo a ball thrown up, and it gives Mayo the opportunity to go point ahead at a critical stage. Of course, that was the win of the game. It was sitting pretty for them. And then we had the incident. When are we ever going to see, 2 own goals in any match, but in an All Ireland final? Sure, like we could come back, lads, in a million years' time. It would never happen. Then the change of the goalkeeper, like, they just seem to just I don't know. You'd still we nearly be believing that curse that's down there that has happened to them, but they have a lot of good things. They had quality, great quality. They still have great quality, but is their chance gone now? That squad of players to win All Ireland probably has. A pity. I definitely thought like that they were good enough to win 1, if not 2 All Irelands. And we all know if you do make the breakthrough, there's a lot of baggage off your shoulders, and you can express yourself a lot more. And we lost a lot of our Ireland fans before we won them. And we got very nervous after we lost 87, 88 after replay 89. We were very nervous against Mayo, and again, it's typical of Mayo. Mayo had the beating of us that day in 89, but they didn't believe they could beat us. And I think when it came to the last 10 minutes, they nearly let us win the game because they felt we should win it. They were nice about it, and I just feel like that maybe their chance is gone, unfortunately. But definitely, they should have had an All Ireland or 2 down the line. If
either Mayo or if Mayo are to win the All Ireland this year, or if Galway are to wipe their eye, as you say, they have to go through Dublin in a semi-final. After reviewing Dublin Meath last weekend, are we witnessing the last days before the fall of Rome here? Is the empire crumbling?
Look, they have been an exceptional squad to be able to keep it going for so long. Maybe it's due to naturally they have a very strong panel. They interchange their players a lot to keep everybody competitive. They have 4 or 5 exceptional leaders that I talked about earlier. But I do think like that there's going to come a time when they're getting to the ball that little bit slower. They're not as effective under pressure. And look, haven't they won enough, lads? No disrespect to Dublin. I've lots of good friends in Dublin, but I think they've won enough at this stage. It'd be nice to see a change. And
would you be happy to see Kerry beat Dublin in an All-Ireland final?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. Without a doubt. I wouldn't have the same maybe grow as all the Cork people down here, but being originally from Kildare. But look, I think it just would sense, as you said, things are changing. We need a change. We've seen a lot of the football teams have been kind of squashed, diminished, non-existent. The margins of defeats. Leinster football has been destroyed, like in relation to a lot of counties. Dublin beating teams by 20 points, 30 points. Is that good? Is that good for the game and these counties? What sort of an appetite would these players have going to training in October, November, December? We've seen lots of other counties through the country equally like getting hammered. There's a big gap between 8 to 10 counties to the rest of the thing, and I think that the other big point is like that we'd have to look seriously at a second tier competition that's competitive to these teams, and profile that second tier competition as much as the first tier competition, and give them centre stage on the biggest days, All-Ireland final days, when the second tier competition could be played in relation to the senior final as well, the main one. So I just think that there's an awful lot to be done with a lot of counties. Otherwise, a lot of these counties won't exist in a few years' time. And it does nobody good, lads, as we all know, to be getting beaten by those margins. It doesn't do the team beating any good, and it certainly doesn't team that's getting hammered any good. So a lot of things to be thought out in relation to a lot of teams, a lot of county teams out there.
Oisín, the demise of Dublin.
I think there's loads of question marks as far as where Dublin are at right now. Like if you look at, there's probably 6 or 7 there who are either inexperienced, maybe even more, maybe 8 or 9 who are either inexperienced or in bad need of some game time and consistent game time. So I think that'll improve them. I think the obvious thing is that they can be got at defensively. Even more so than before, and not in just the hay ball or nothing. I just think John Small's a big miss, as far as just that extra dog in there, man marker. But I do think that that Dublin with another game under the belt against Kildare in the semi-final. They still have the capabilities of winning All Ireland. That maybe isn't a very obvious thing to say, but I'll look at Dublin after the All Ireland semi final, and I think we'll have.
You're sitting on the fence there, Oisín, but you're like a politician.
Well, I actually still think that Dublin win the All Ireland. Yeah, I still think Dublin win the All Ireland because I think that they probably have given themselves a little point to prove now, and they'll not like a lot of the conjecture from people like you two boys who have more or less written them off.
Hold on now. Last week I loved them too much, and this week I'm writing them off. I haven't an opinion yet.
As I say, so like you guys seem to have written them off as far as what I can see from reading.
Well, look, they have been an exceptional squad. I just feel we all know, Oisín, you know what I mean. You get to a stage, it's like driving a car. It's like doing that bit of miles on the clock, and they've survived a few occasions like the last few years. I thought 2 years ago that, as I said, Kerry would take him. I just thought a bit of inexperience cost him. I just think that Dublin are not as effective. I just see them that they're just not moving as quick with the ball or free flowing as normally they would. And Dublin, playing Wexford, playing Meath, okay, they won them. They'd say that actually they didn't have to beat them by big margins, but before they were hammering them out the gate. Like, they bet me by 20 points last year. Like, I just think like that. Your body slows down. I don't care how mechanically or good they are, or training they're doing, or all these things that they put into them. But like, I just think that they're there to be taken, and I just think it's time now that we've seen another team stepping up.
Well, Larry, when you were chatting about Mayo, like, Mayo have really only buckled under the intense pressure that Dublin put you under. Like I can't really see how Galway will put Mayo under that intense pressure. I still think that Dublin will benefit from a more settled outfit and a few more bodies back. And I think if they get to that stage, and maybe you can Marching Small back in for the Kildare game, a little bit more settled, really just have that midfield position to sort out, and then you're talking about a completely different animal. Plus, you're talking about a team with another All-Ireland in their sights and 140 minutes away, and I think then things really change. So, like, we have the good thing, I think, that has come out of all the questions that Dublin have to answer and the indecision from their own part is that it makes for a brilliant last four in the All-Ireland, I think.
I think it'll be exciting games, no doubt about it. I just think that I think with Galway Mayo, like, it's funny. I just think, looking at the game last year, I think Galway were going nowhere after the league. They were just on a downward spiral, and they still came within close to Mayo. Like, yeah. And I just think like the Mayo have had no competitive game. Like, Galway have had a good kind of a heart wrencher. Messy day again, Roscommon, who can be difficult enough to beat down there.
And Monaghan, in fairness, in the last league game as well.
And they just think like that. Anytime I witness a Galway football team going to Croke Park, they can deliver. Like, and I just think with the change of venue will help Galway, and I just have a sneaky feeling that they'll do it. And exciting games ahead. And look, Dublin won't go way too easy. They're warriors, but watch out.
The one thing I would say about Dublin is, I think that the trick for every successful county is to have the best players in the county out on the field. And Stephen Cluxton is not on the field this year. Paul Mannion and Jack McCafferty should be in their prime playing for Dublin this year and not in the panel. Eric Lowndes is gone from the panel, and so on. So that could end up catching Dublin in the end. So if we move to this weekend, Larry, we've been running predictions every weekend here, and to be fair to Oisín, he's really improved this year. Although he did predict that Westmeath would beat Kildare, he managed to get the other matches right last weekend, which is a credit to him. And this weekend we just have two games to predict the winners of. And if we start with you, Oisín, Cork versus Kerry.
Kerry by a lot.
By how much? Yeah, there we go. By how much?
By a lot.
Well, what's a lot?
10, 12,
come on, put
10, 12, 14 points.
Okay. Larry, Kerry or Cork?
Unfortunately, I'll have to go for Kerry.
By how much?
I think they're given a handicap of 8. They'll do better than that. They'll beat them by more than 8. Okay.
Galway Mayo.
Well, I've stuck my head out there earlier, so I have massive time for Mayo, but I just think that Galway will take them. I think it'll be an exciting game. It's a game I'm really looking forward to, and I just think that the venue change will suit Galway. So going with Galway a couple of points.
I think Mayo will be able to handle that Galway forward line. I think they have more dogs, more man markers. I think the change of venue will suit Mayo. And I think it's big time for a lot of the young lads up front to step up, and I think Aidan O'Shea is a massive part to play in all of that happens. But Mayo for me, and I get exactly what Larry's saying about the fact that they haven't been tested and they haven't been they haven't been in a real match yet. But I think that may be the thing in the last 15 minutes that might stand to them, in that for the first time ever, Mayo are going into this stage of the championship fresher than I've ever seen them, and seem to have more in the legs than they have done in the past. So, and that's why I think maybe that Croke Park venue will suit them.
Did you watch Kildare against Westmeath last weekend, Larry?
Yeah, and fair play to Oisin. It was a good call with Westmeath, because my brothers were at the game, and I just seen the highlights and listened to the commentary. Westmeath were very unlucky not to win it. So yeah, they were competitive. I just think that Kildare. I think Kildare are if they played Meath in the morning, I'd be fancying Meath. So Kildare going into the Leinster final, I don't know. I don't think they're as good as what people maybe are shouting out about. I think they have a lot of things to get right before the Leinster final, and I think Dublin could give them a drubbing.
When you watch Kildare footballers playing, how do you feel?
Sure, look, I'd be emotionally kind of in with them, like, if that makes a little bit of sense. Even going to the All-Ireland final, I remember in '98 against Galway, it was just unusual, like, to just be walking down the road and going in to support them in an All-Ireland final, like, and yeah, it's still there. Narcy still have a lot of great friends up there, believe it or not, and one great story in 1987 when I played my first All-Ireland final with Cork. That time the infrastructure wasn't as good, and the cars had to go through all the little villages and towns, but it was a nice gesture when people got to Kildare town. The text myself and Shay saying that there was a big banner across the road, welcome home Shay and Larry, best of luck tomorrow. So that was a nice touch, and yeah, a lot of great mates, a lot of great friends there still. And look, Kildare are the type of team, their supporters, as we know, are fanatical. They love the game of GA. They bring great swagger, but just I suppose the biggest thing they've always probably lacked is that kind of ruthlessness, devilment, competitiveness, leaders when it's really needed to stand up and be counted. And I just have to see, they don't seem to have enough of them at the moment anyway.
Do you call yourself a Cork man or a Kildare man?
Well, I'm in business down here in Cork, so I need people to come into me, Paul. So.
I'm just interested, particularly when you see Oisin split loyalties later. It can just happen to lads sometimes. We're going to leave it there for this week. Thank you to Larry Ryan for running this podcast, to Raf Rocca, to Tony Lean, to Renault, to everyone at Examiner Sport for making it happen. Huge thanks to Oisin and especially to Larry Tompkins for joining us. We'll be back soon.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
With Renault, passion for what drives you. Official car partner of the GAA.
A grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lads.
There's a small bit of a needle there.
Come on, Mayo. You've got to get Andy Moran into the game.
Listen, victory